Broadcasting live from the dark and cold dungeons deep beneath the KLAV studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. Prepare yourselves to be taken away into another dimension as we now have control over your thoughts, fears, and perspective of the unexplained world you dare not speak of. With your hosts, Lindsay Knight and Michael Knight. Ladies and gentlemen, we now open the gates to the paranormal and beyond.
Broadcasting live from the KLAV studios in Las Vegas, Nevada, this is the Paranormal and Beyond. Since the opening of its gates on July of 1955, the happiest place on earth, Disneyland, has been the go-to mecca when it comes to theme parks all over the world. From the iconic Matterhorn to the terrifying screams of Space Mountain and all the way down to the heart-stopping drop of Splash Mountain, you can rest assured that when you enter the Magic Kingdom, the kid at heart inside you will surely jump out, getting lost in this wonderland world of dreams. However, upon the thousands of visitors who frequent this park, many are clueless to the dark side and secrets that Disney holds since its opening day. In a moment, we will discuss the not-so-talked-about history of Disneyland and also reveal to you some bizarre secrets from within the theme park itself. So keep your arms in the ride at all times, because we are now launching you into the Paranormal Beyond right here on the Talk of Las Vegas, KLAV 1230 AM.
Your ticket to the unknown is at NightsParanormalResearchSociety.com. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, hauntings, mysterious places and more can be found at NightsParanormalResearchSociety.com. Nights with a K, ParanormalResearchSociety.com. Based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, Nights Paranormal Research Society is owned and operated by the renowned brother and sister team of Michael and Lindsay Knight. Seeing is believing. And at NightsParanormalResearchSociety.com, you're going to believe. Join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight, for the Paranormal and Beyond. Join host Michael Knight and Lindsay Knight as they investigate the unexplained and most controversial mysteries of the world. The Paranormal and Beyond, where the paranormal lives on and conspiracies exposed. The Paranormal and Beyond, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight. Brought to you by NightsParanormalResearchSociety.com.
Welcome back to another brand new and fantastic edition of the Paranormal Beyond. But first, be sure to check us out at NightsParanormalResearchSociety.com, where you can link up to all the past shows by simply clicking on that archive link above. That's NightsParanormalResearchSociety.com. Also, want to be a character in the Disney movies? Well, you can start by acting today by logging on to HollywoodBoundActingAcademy.com. Again, that's HollywoodBoundActingAcademy.com. actingacademy.com. Special shout out to all those listening online through the KLAV1230am.com website, and all those driving around the Vegas Valley listening to us on your stereos. Much obliged. I'm your host, Michael Knight. Alongside of me is your other host, Lindsay Knight. And joining us in the studios, Jessica Johns of Wartime Paranormal. We are your radio evangelist for the rest of the night, spreading the true word of truth. All right, we got a great show for you today. Lindsay, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. Jessica, how are you doing?
I'm doing, well, I was going to say phantasmic, but you stole that.
Exactly. It's copywritten by me once the minute hand starts going on this show. We have a great show for you today because we're going to get into the dark secrets of Disney and stuff you don't know about the park, the history, and just some macabre things that when you go to the park next time, you'll totally see the Magic Kingdom in a totally different light. But first, let's get on to the news.
Topping the news for the Paranormal and Beyond this Monday, October 7th, it's been said you are what you eat. Well, a teetotal man is constantly at risk of being drunk, as his stomach turns everything he eats into pure alcohol. Matthew Hogg suffers from a rare condition known as autobrewery syndrome, where an overgrowth of yeast in his small intestine produces pure ethanol that is absorbed directly into his bloodstream. His condition, which went undetected for 20 years, has caused him to be drunk for most of his life. Graduating 3 years ago with first-class honors as a nutritional therapist, he is unable to hold on a steady job, having to watch what he eats. Certain foods produce 100% pure alcohol in his system. Doctors are completely baffled. His condition is so severe that usual treatment procedures of antifungal medications, probiotic supplements, and selected nutritional supplements do not prevent the production of alcohol. He has been left to manage the level of fermentation himself with only vitamin and minerals to help. In other news, in a recent survey given by Le Méridien Hotel and Resort, apparently people prefer coffee over sex. Coffee is better than sex as an ideal way to wake up. According to travelers, the caffeine buzz is preferable to a little morning action. 53% of guests would opt for a hot beverage than a hot woman. And 73% of people surveyed would sacrifice in-room TVs, internet access for the perfect cup of coffee. Even more, 78% would rather give up alcohol, social media, or sex with their spouse for a year than rather coffee. Just over half, 51%, said they could go longer without sex than without coffee. Most of these respondents, 55% of them, were women. Reporting the news for the Paranormal and Beyond, I'm Lindsay Knight.
Hey, I don't agree with that last news. I love my sex with coffee. Let's do them both at the same time. We'll get wired, right?
I don't think that's really what we should be talking about, knowing we're doing a Disney show.
Were there a lot of gay men doing this? Because if they would sacrifice a hot woman, they must...
You know, I don't know, but the fact of the matter is that I've already had about 4 cups of coffee today, and I drink coffee just about every day, so I don't know, and I'm a woman here.
So you're saying you didn't have sex. Oh, you just stepped on your own foot there. All right, let's get into our story and talk about Disneyland and all its bizarreness. It's weird. Every day, there's thousands upon thousands of people who walk into Disneyland. And there's just the history behind Disneyland is fascinating, as with the park itself. And we all know that when we get to Disneyland, we got kind of goofy. It's like I walk in there and as I turn into like this 6-year-old boy without family. And I just want to like break dance and take off my clothes and put on the, Mickey Mouse ears. And it's just crazy.
Well, even as a grown adult, I love to go to Disneyland. I prefer to go to Disneyland versus anywhere else, and I could travel, pretty much anywhere, but I always find myself back at Disneyland for some apparent reason.
I was 18 years old. I went to Disney World, and it was the first time I'd ever been, and the whole time I was going through this park, I'm like, oh my God, I feel like such a little kid. And then once I got to, like, at the very end when they did Phantasmic, I cried the whole time. I was like, this is the most magical place on earth. Like, it really is. I don't ever want to leave. Can I live here?
It does. It changes the people. When you go in there, your whole mindset is like, you're about to face bankruptcy, a divorce, and all this.
But it all goes away.
Yeah, and you walk in there, and you're like, where can I get those Mickey ears at? You just totally lose yourself in the whole Magic Kingdom. And, I mean, it's great, the feeling and the rides along the way. Disney decorates their whole theme park. It supersedes any other park out there. That's why Disneyland is.
Well, it's supposed to be the happiest place on earth and where you can be a kid. And that's pretty much why we're doing the story tonight, because there is a darker side to the whole Disney corporation.
Exactly. We know Disney protects itself because it tenders to children and has this reputation of what you just said, the happiest place on earth. But, not for a few out there who've actually had their so-called curses with this park, and just the history alone, it's pretty scary. We're not trying to do this show and then the next, hopefully your kids aren't listening, because they're going to be like, Mommy and Daddy, I do not want to go to Disneyland. It's, one big haunted house. But let's talk about the history of Disneyland. The Disney park was originally first to be Disneyland and designed of two parks. We have the one in Anaheim, California, and we also have the Orlando, Florida one. And going back to Walt Disney, this was like his baby, his whole dream. And it's kind of odd to see a grown man who first, is like a big kid at heart and wanted to invest all his money into this. And he took out a lot of money in loans just to have this park open.
Well, we're talking about Walt Disney here, and let me just tell you who Walt Disney was. He was a 33 Freemason, and an Illuminatus.
Uh-oh. I know where this is
also
going.
an occultist.
Well, what you would think. He had a lot of power, a lot of money back then. He was also dabbling in Hollywood. We all know that. And he was doing something nobody's ever done before in the way he was doing it. He was trying to actually create Tomorrowland, this whole facade of where you can go and basically your whole dreams come true. So he's selling this whole pitch where he's going to build this fantasy land. And, and that's what it is today. But the park opened in 1955 on July 17th, and it was designed and built under the direct supervision of Walt Disney himself until 1969 he passed away. And the last ride he actually personally designed and was there on set for was Pirates of the Caribbean.
I just have to say that, and a lot of people don't know this, but Walt Disneyland or Disney World is not part of the United States. Even though it is here in the United States, Walt Disneyland is its own sovereign nation, complete with its own underground government and laws. A lot of people don't know that, but it is. It's how big this conglomerate is.
Well, Jessica and Lindsay, I was talking about you out in the green room how, if you've been to Disneyland out there in the middle of Anaheim, it's basically in a suburban area, homes and stuff like that.
Well, they own Buena Vista.
Yeah, but it's like illegal to pop, a firecracker in California. But these people, they got the authority to blow millions of dollars of fireworks every night. And we're talking about 11 to 12 to 1 in the morning.
Well,
and if you ever been there when they're doing it, the concussion alone is so loud that's how much power Disneyland has.
You were talking to me about this when we were staying at the hotel, because this was about 1 o'clock in the morning, because they close about 12 and then the fireworks go off for the Fantasmic.
Right.
And, there was numerous houses, in the vicinity. And we were saying, well, how do these people live there and, not get irritated? But I guess you get used to it. But at the same time, the reason why is because they own Buena Vista. They own that. I mean, they own that whole section, so they're able to do whatever they want. Like I said, this conglomerate of this huge corporation of just Disney, everything, even in Florida. I mean, not to mention they also own the one in Paris. So there's three?
Yeah, I think everybody. I remember everybody in Orlando talks about how
Japan too.
Everybody in Orlando talks about how the ears, pretty much run that town. Like, that's the saying.
Well, let's put in the same demographic as Las Vegas, okay? Casinos run Las Vegas. It's the money generator. Before Disney ever came to Florida or Orlando, it was basically just marshland, You're basically a place to go and you retire to push up daisies and basically go to the beach, Miami and all that. But then you have, Disney World. You've been there before. I mean, to go through all those, how many parks? 7, 8 big kingdoms?
Yeah.
And, and compare that to the Anaheim location of Disneyland, which is just, Disneyland and California Adventure. I could only imagine that just one day alone would be not enough to go through the whole Disneyland.
You have the Animal Kingdom, and you have Universal, and then you have the actual one, and then you have Epcot, and then you have... There was another one.
Yeah, see, it's too much you don't even know.
There's 5 parks.
Well, I bet you guys don't know this. Disney World is actually on the second floor. There's a first floor where it's built underground, like, which I said. And that's where everybody, they do the trash, all the people,
cast members
all the cast member employees, they go down there to change, what have you, eat and so forth. So,
Well, that's how it is in the Anaheim location. The Disneyland underground, a lot of the rides are underground in Disneyland because there's not enough space. So you get the whole facade of like the Haunted Mansion. You've been in that ride. It's not that, big when you walk into the house itself, and you're basically going down an elevator and they're taking you outside the park to a whole stage area where this whole thing is happening. And the Haunted Mansion itself has a lot of stories when it comes to, you were talking about the whole Illuminati thing.
Well, let me talk. That's exactly what I want to get into real quick, because I'm not going to talk too much about the Illuminati because there's so much more that we want to discuss. But Walt Disney was actually heavily involved back in the 50s and in the 40s with MK Ultra and mind control, and he was really good friends with Reagan. And as a matter of fact, on the opening of Disneyland, Reagan, I believe
Nixon.
Well, he was friends with Nixon as well. But in one of the rides that first opened, Reagan was actually there to MC it. He was good friends with him, and they were both heavily involved in MK Ultra and mind control. And there's a lot of, stories that go way back. And I know it's urban legend, but there's a lot of people that has come out who were involved with this whole Disney thing back then when it was being built, with the whole Disney World being built. That according to CIA informants opposed to the NWO, CIA contractors were brought in to build the underground tunnels under Disney World in 1977. These contractors were sworn to secrecy and on need to know basis, saying that they were not allowed to say anything, that it was just an amusement park being built. But on the bottom of it, there was an actual mind control for children that was going on, and they were actually involved with the Rothschilds, and they were funding a lot of this money to Walt Disney in order for him to pay for this whole amusement park to be built. Not only that, there is a town called Celebration in Florida, which is connected to the Disney World, which has a lot of schools and children that are being supposedly mind controlled.
Yeah,
I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
Everybody that's out there listening is like, God, these guys tie everything to conspiracies, and well, that's the whole thing. It's money and power. But getting back to Disneyland, yeah, it's the whole thing with Disneyland is basically mind control. When you go in there, the advertising's all around, and
but like you said in the beginning, when you walk in there, it's just like, you just want to put on those mouse ears and wear the white gloves, and just be a kid, and that's exactly what they want.
Walt Disney Inc. also teamed up with two labs, which was the Los Alamos and the Sandia labs, which were connected and heavily involved in mind control as well. And, when I keep saying mind control, there has been a lot of stuff that has come out over the years when, they started doing, like Lion King, different types of movies, and you started seeing subliminal messages in there that had to do with like sex and different sort of things like that kids should not be involved with at
during
a
that
young age.
era, Disney, basically the Imagineers and the animators who was working for Pixar and all this, and the whole DreamWorks and all that, basically had a feud with the Disney corporations, and payback. They secretly started putting these pornographic subliminal message in everything they put out. So you had that period in time where everything was just basically like, I can't believe they're doing this, when it's supposed to be like rated way PG for these kids.
PG is supposed to be G rated. There's nothing.
Exactly.
You're not supposed to. PG is like rated R in Disney talk.
Also, a lot of people may not know this as well, but Aleister Crowley, which was back in the day, way back, he was a serial rapist, murderer, convict, the worst of the worst, very wealthy, powerful as well. But he was also a descendant to, or Walt Disney was a descendant to him. And in the Illuminati, the Luciferian way, this 666, if you look at the Disney, the way it's spelled, you can find 3 6s in that.
Wow.
Not to mention the W in Walt.
I didn't expect that. Oh, we're going to turn Disneyland into this, hell. But
don't get me wrong, I'll still be going back there no matter what.
Okay, but Disney has its shadow history. We all know, we talked about the whole animation, the Lion Lion King, the naked girl, and that movie. What is it, The Rascals?
The Rescuers.
Yeah, The Rescuers, and you had the Lion King with the
Little
whole
Mermaid.
sex. Little Mermaid, Aladdin, all these little hints towards a sex era. Do you know during that time that Pepsi was also doing the whole thing? Remember when the Pepsi cans that came out with the neon, streaks in it? The can was like black with these neon lights. If you put two cans together, they spelled out sex. But I was just floored back and thrown back that Disney would be going this route. And it was just amazing how they would do this. And you had, what was that cover with Little Mermaid with, I'm not even going to say it, but that was taken off the shelf right when it was noticed. And this is how bold the Disney animators, although people did get in trouble, it wasn't that big of a deal because they were going through a dispute during this time, but they did get their way. But stuff like that, Disney has this, and let's talk about Disney itself, and let's talk about the whole name for Disney. Hey, we are talking about something that, like I said before, is focused on children. Today, they started upping up their rides to tend to the adults, the older people. But the rides alone has their histories, to the hauntings, to the deaths, to the bizarre, and all these rides are just weird. How many deaths have you came up with doing your research?
I got 4 or 5. 4
well,
or 5.
just in Anaheim alone.
Because I have
in that location, Anaheim.
In Anaheim, I have.
I'm counting 9. 9. And
yeah, I got. Yeah. Well, what's
Okay, let's go through the deaths, all right?
Okay.
Oh, and here's the thing, okay? Every time there's a death in Disneyland, and I'm talking about dead on the scene, Disneyland never says that the person died in the park. Because like I said, it's a protection of the brand. It's Disneyland, but I think they're so far out there already that they can get away with a lot of stuff.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I was thinking like when it comes to like guests, and I got like one. I got almost that.
Well, we're talking about guests too, and people who let's go through this real quick. In May of 1964, Mark Maples, a 15-year-old Long Beach, California resident, was killed when he tried to stand up on the Matterhorn bobsled. Maples and his companion foolishly unbuckled a seatbelt and attempted to stand up as their bobsled neared the peak of the mountain. Maples lost his balance and was thrown from the sled and to the track below, fracturing his skull and ribs and crushing internal injuries. He died 3 days later.
We also have that other lady that died. It was a mother was on the ride with her kids, and she was worried about them, so she took her seatbelt off and turned to check on her kids. And at that point in time, it went into that dip. I guess they now call it Dolly's dip. And she fell out and was run over and dragged on the track by another bobsled.
You've been on the Matterhorn, right?
Too many times.
Not that scary. It's a very stiff ride, It jerks a lot and it's stiff. But I would understand you take off your seatbelt there. You're just asking for it on any ride.
By the way, the Matterhorn has a basketball court inside, by the way.
Oh, it does. And a lot of people, here's the thing, I had a friend who was actually Peter Pan and told me all this stuff. And a lot of people really want to go on the breaks and go inside because it is like a break room and, a basketball court. However, if you go there, you're going to have to ask permission to get in there. And by the time you get in there, your break's over. So going back to the deaths, on June of 1966, Thomas Guy Cleveland, a 19-year-old Northridge, California resident, was killed when he attempted to sneak into Disneyland along the monorail tracks, the tracks on the outside. Cleveland scaled the park's 16-foot high outer fence on the grand night and climbed into the monorail track, intending to jump or climb down once inside the park. Cleveland ignored a security guard's shoutings warning and approached the monorail train and fell and leaped clear onto the track. He finally climbed down into the fiberglass canopy beneath the track, but the clearance wasn't enough. The oncoming train struck and killed him, dragging his body 30 to 40 feet down the track, tearing him apart. And I remember the story. This was like, reading about this, they were trying to say that he was basically trying to break in and basically had a feud with the security guard itself. So they were trying to downplay it and make him look like the bad person, which you shouldn't be breaking in Disneyland anyways. And that was one of the deaths in 67.
In June of 1973 and in June of 1983, actually, 18-year-old boys, well, again, separate occasions, drowned in the rivers of America. They both tried to sneak in when they weren't supposed to. So, like in 1973, a boy and his brother decided to stay in the park after closing, and they drowned trying to swim through the rivers.
Well, I know the story very well. There's two sides to this story. What happened is they missed the Mark Twain to get back to the other side. No, not the Mark Twain, but the little raft that takes you on the other side. Right. It was late. And to get back, they thought they're going to swim across the rivers of America. One thing they don't understand is that is not a swimmable river. There's a lot of pumps in that river that pushes current, so it looks like there's an actual tidal wave going by or current. So what happens is one made it through, but one actually got sucked by one of the pumps. And if you've seen Willy Wonka, the whole Augustus glue. Basically, that's what happened to him, and he basically got churned and crushed into the suction force of this pump that was pushing the tide current away.
Well, it happened again in 1983. There was another 18-year-old boy that capsized a rubber emergency raft that he had stolen from a cast-only section of the park. 10 years, but it's weird. It's like they're both in June and they were 10 years apart.
Yeah, so they're not like very far apart, and like the months coalesce with each other. In August of 1967, you have Ricky Lee Yama, a 17-year-old Hawthorne, California resident, was killed when he disregarded safety instructions and exited his people mover car. And that we're talking about, remember the people mover cars? It's sort of like the monorail back in the days. And he was basically trying to jump on the other monorail car. But this monorail, the tracks are the ones actually moving. And he actually got torn to pieces and dragged again. And then his body fell to his death. So you had these people who are very, very risque, tempting fate in the park, which is you shouldn't be doing.
Well, let's talk about like what happens, the people that were building those rides, like the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. There was a guy, his name was George, and he was a welder, and he either, there's a couple of sides to the story where he either fell to his death from a high ladder or a beam fell on him and crushed him.
There's
the construction of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride.
Undisclosed deaths when it comes to the building of Disneyland. You look at the Haunted Mansion, it took like almost close to 11 years for it just to come to fruition with all the plans. Because, like I said, when the Haunted Mansion was in works, Walt Disney was still alive and working on that, but his whole goal was to finish Pirates of the Caribbean. When Disney died in 67, the whole project on a Haunted Mansion stopped because he was a designer himself. He would design these rides to his specifications. Now you have the Imagineers who do this and the architects for Disney. But it was just like pushed back, and you had like two different rival competitors. They wanted to make the Haunted Mansion more cheesy, like a fun house, and you had the other one who really wanted to make it scary. So you see two different types of, let's say, genre when you walk in. You see, the stretching of the bodies when you're going down the elevator. It's more like a joke. You see it changing pictures and stuff like that. But once you go past the attic ride and into the main part, and you see that head there talking, that's basically the other designer who wanted to make it more real. And then you come into the dancing ballroom. And there's a story on the dancing ballroom, too, about talking about that shattered glass in the mirror. Because to get those, ghosts looking like they're really interacting and dancing down there, if you've ever been in there, it's basically a Pepper's Ghost kind of effect. And they use mirrors. So they have mannequins bouncing off these mirrors, reflecting onto the whole ballroom. But some guy decided one day to go in there with a pellet gun and try to shatter. See, these are people that are so out there that you would even attempt to do this. That's why some people die. But he ended up shooting the glass, and it made this spiderweb fracture. And Disney didn't want to replace it because there was one big slab of mirror. And by this time, if they're going to replace it, it costs over millions of dollars to do this, and they would have to take the roof off, the whole stage area.
Did that guy, did they sue him, or did
No,
they
they didn't even know who did it. They
Oh.
didn't even know who did it. So what they did, if you look towards the end of that whole ballroom dancing, jig they're doing there, you can see the crack in the glass. If you just keep staring at the glass, you'll see it. But they cover it with a spider, so it looks like a spider web now. So they basically saved a lot of money doing that. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue on with a couple more deaths and some secrets in the park. You think the hidden Mickeys are what to look for? No, there's other crazy stuff. Yeah, Club 33, we'll go into that, what that's about. And how cast members are supposed to, keep themselves in character 24 hours a day, even when they're not working at Disneyland because of the Disney brand. When we return right here on the Talk of Las Vegas, KLAV 1230 AM.
You're listening to the Paranormal and Beyond. Join us at 731-1230. That's 731-1230. Lindsay and Michael return after this. Join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight for the Paranormal and Beyond. Join host Michael Knight and Lindsay Knight as they investigate the unexplained and most controversial mysteries of the world. The Paranormal and Beyond, where the paranormal lives on and conspiracies exposed. The Paranormal and Beyond, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight. Brought to you by Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. Your ticket to the unknown is at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, hauntings, mysterious places, and more can be found at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. Knights with a K, Paranormal Research Society.com. Based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, Knights Paranormal Research Society is owned and operated by the renowned brother and sister team of Michael and Lindsay Knight. Seeing is believing. And at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com, you're going to believe. Join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight for the Paranormal and Beyond. Join host Michael Knight and Lindsay Knight as they investigate the unexplained and most controversial mysteries of the world. The Paranormal and Beyond, where the paranormal lives on and conspiracies exposed. The Paranormal and Beyond, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight. Brought to you by Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com.
Unbelievable sights, indescribable feeling, soaring, tumbling, freewheeling through a deathless diamond sky. A whole new world. Don't you dare.
All right, if you're just tuning in, we are talking about the dark secrets and tricks behind Disneyland. But remember to check us out at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com, where you catch up to all those past shows. All right, let's get back into the mix. All right, we left off talking about the Haunted Mansion. The thing about the Haunted Mansion as well, and we'll get back to the deaths, is that, do you know that people bring their remains there and dump it?
Yeah, that is true. There is actually one story, and this is actually fact. This happened. There was a tourist group that actually requested extra time on the ride. So they asked permission, and because they want to do a memorial for their 7-year-old boy. Disney gave the family permission, but it turns out the memorial was only half their plan when the mourners were spotted sprinkling a powdery substance of their doomed on the doomed buggies. So they found out about it, and what Disneyland tried to do was they quickly went in there and tried to gather the ashes, but they couldn't gather it in time. You know what I mean? So it's actually spread on the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, let's sweep these remains up. Yeah, good luck with that. But, there's stories about other people going there with Ziploc bags and they dump it. And you know where they do it? They do it at the pet cemetery on the side. Now, that's really not seen to the public anymore. They used to have a line that used to go right by it. But now you have to ask a Disney character if you can see it. And they'll gladly show it to you. It's on the side of that Haunted Mansion. But a lot of people to this day, they bring their remains and sprinkle it at the Haunted Mansion because their slogan is basically the Haunted Mansion whole story is where the ghosts come to stay now. That's the resting place. So they have 99 haunts. But, there's been stories of people seeing apparitions there when, the park closes at night. And how ironic that the Haunted Mansion is actually haunted. But it's because people bringing their remains there.
Well, I heard a story about, actually a couple stories about after the ashes of that 7-year-old boy were dumped, people started to actually see a little boy. And then one of the cast members was actually waiting for the next group to come in. And she heard a child giggling and she was like, okay, cool. The next group's coming in. I hear the kids, but nobody ever showed. And she kept seeing something out of the corner of her eye and it just kept happening and nothing was ever there. And then all of a sudden she felt like a cool breeze and then something touched her shoulder and there was nobody there. So she ran out and said, I'm never working the Haunted Mansion ever again.
It's kind of hard to differentiate when you see an actual ghost in the Haunted Mansion, whether it's the animatronics going off or the special effects. So it's kind of hard. There's been a lot of YouTube videos of people seeing ghosts in there, but it gets scoffed at because we're talking about Disneyland Haunted Mansion, which is built up and rigged to be, I quote, haunted. All right, going back to the deaths, we have one that happened on Christmas Eve, and this was an accident in December of 98. One Disneyland cast member and 2 guests were injured, one fatally, when a rope used to secure the sailing ship Columbia as it docked on the rivers of America tore loose and the metal cleat to which it was attached, the cleat sailed through the air and struck the heads of the 2 guests who were waiting to board the ship. Lou Phi Dawson, of 33, of Duval, Washington, and his wife, Lei Thoi Vong, I'm thinking these people are Vietnamese, 43 Dawson was declared brain dead 2 days later and died with life support system when it was disconnected. Here's the thing, okay? You just got whacked by this metal piece holding a big boat Columbia down. And we always hear this when it comes to Disneyland. They died later. You will never hear them say they died at the park.
Yeah, but sometimes it's totally obvious because they had a cast member there. Her name was Debbie Stone, and she was working as a hostess to America Sings when her fellow cast members noticed that she had gone missing and somebody heard her scream, but nobody knew where she was. And by the time that they found her, she was stuck in between one of the rotating walls and one of the permanent walls, and her body was so far mangled that there was really nothing they could do about it. And obviously, she was already dead. You can't say that she died somewhere else.
Well, Disney said she died later at the hospital.
Speaking of missing, did you know that during the time of when Indiana Jones, the ride opened, 33 kids have gone missing in the line since it opened?
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Where are they going?
They're going underground for MK Ultra.
It's kind of hard. See, this is one
They're coming out years later as cast members,
Exactly.
completely brainwashed.
See, here's the one thing.
No, I'm really the prince from Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah, you never know. That's one thing about Disney is we know that they hide their deaths. They don't want to put, this smear mark on the Disney name. So everybody dies later, even though how gruesome it is. Like, Thunder Mountain, this guy stood up and basically got decapitated. However, he died 3 days later.
But we all know that obviously in an amusement park, there is going to be accidents that happen. That is unavoidable.
Yeah. But other amusement parks, what happens when accident happens at an amusement park? It gets shut down. If you are like hanging with the carnies, let's say somewhere here, you have those little carnival rides. If something goes wrong, the carnival gets shut down.
Yeah, we're talking about Disneyland, though. They don't shut anything down. It's 24/7.
No, it's Disneyland who shuts others down. That's it, take it the other way around. You're talking about a monopoly here. Disney owns a lot of film rights. They own a lot of rights to their clothing. Just the name alone is trillions of dollars.
Well, they own Touchstone Pictures, they own Pixar, they own, of course, Disney World, and the whole land. They own DreamWorks, they own the whole land, around it, and so does Disneyland. So they're huge. They pretty much own everything.
Yeah, Disney Illuminati. That's who they are, and it's just...
Speaking of the Illuminati, let me just say this one thing. Everybody knows Fantasia, and we all know the music behind Fantasia. But did you know
Phantasmic or Fantasia?
Fantasia, the movie. Fantasia. Okay, the movie. There's a lot of music in that. Well, there's one specific song that stands out. That particular song was actually written of the rites of spring music, which was written as a pagan ritual where a virgin sacrifices herself by dancing to death.
I mean, well, Fantasia was always creepy anyway. Like, it always kind of seemed, like, looking back on it now, like, the dancing brooms and how they were kind of dancing. It was just very dark.
Black magic.
Yeah.
Well, because Walt Disney was into, occultism. So...
Well, that's how, back in the days, I think everybody was dabbling in things like that. It's basically new, and... you're talking about something that we don't have a grasp on and really know. It's still in research. So you would see if, this is true. And, Disney was a very eccentric man, per se, because, just look what he built. He built an empire. And you said, Jessica, that he is not frozen.
No, he's definitely not frozen. That's definitely an urban legend. I think he was cremated, and his...
ashes are on a haunted mansion.
No, actually, everybody thinks that he was, he's at Forest Lawn Cemetery, but the rumor is that he was cryogenically frozen, and his body's under Pirates of the Caribbean.
Well, let's talk about some of the secrets behind the whole Disney empire.
Okay, well, let's talk about Disneyland itself, the park. Do you know Sleeping Beauty's castle is the center of Disneyland? If you walk into there and look down, there's a coin.
Yeah, and
that marks the center of the whole Disneyland
also,
park.
That drawbridge is an actual drawbridge. It's way, way, way old. And not to mention, there on top of the drawbridge where you first enter to go into the whole castle in Sleeping Beauty, at Disneyland, there is actually a VIP room there.
There's a suite.
For celebrities.
Yeah, and that's the creme de la creme of where people go for private tours and stuff like that. To this day, if you go around the park and you see these gentlemen dressed in plaid jackets and all this, these are the guys who escort these rich so-called privateers who want to take these tours out around the park. Also, if we all know Mickey's Firehouse when you first walk in, and a lot of people are like, don't realize why that candle is lit in the window. Well, going back when Disney was alive, right, he used to stay in that park. And by signifying the candle lit on the windowsill, everybody knew that the man was home. And they would act their best. So to this day, when you walk by the firehouse, you will still see that light, which is now electrical. But it's basically a memorial for Walt Disney. And he used to live there. That was his apartment. He used to oversee the park. And you know who was basically the first people who used to live in Disneyland? Because people do live there. First people who used to live in Disneyland were the people who took care of the animals. Stable people. Man, Walt Disney himself. And now I don't know who lives there. Except for the ghosts and stuff like that.
Well, Disney World and Disneyland is a 24/7 operation. So when the park closes and everybody goes home, either at 12 o'clock midnight or if it's an earlier time, the park does not necessarily close to the employees because a whole crew comes in and has to clean up the place. And, of course, there's the underground where a lot of things go on. Not to mention, though, there is something to do with cats.
Oh, yeah. Here's the cat thing that'll blow your mind. And this is true. Back in the 60s, any establishment you have, especially out in the open, sort of, restaurants too alone, you seem to get a mice problem, especially there. We're talking about they have trees, they have their ecosystem in Disneyland. But they had a severe mice problem that would go and leave poopings in, their little restaurants, their little snack bars. So what they did in the 60s is they released 60 stray cats into the park to solve the problem of all these mice. Well, today they have over 200 cats that are roaming basically Disneyland, and they tell you do not touch the cats because a lot of them do have rabies.
And this is now. These are feral cats that they let out at night each night, but they don't always catch the cats. they have little homes that they go to that
They
are
have
hidden.
feeding stations for
Yes.
these cats now, and what they do to control the population is one of two things: they spay and neuter them, but sometimes undisclosed time, occasionally they let dogs through Disneyland at night to go and kill these cats, and a lot of people don't know that. Because a cat, there's just so many cats out there, and plus a lot of them are not, seen a vet. So, and eating stuff off the ground, and we're talking about now with the Mark Twain Island and all this, it gets dirty, and they can't clean up everything like that. So you do have these, scary cats running around with diseases there. So stay away from the cats if you ever come across one. Don't try to take one home, because you'll take home more than that. Spread it around with your family, and talk about spreading stuff around. Also back in the 70s, and now it is by law by Disney up until 2001, you could wear your own underwear if you were a cast member in costume. Okay, there's two types of cast members. There's open face, which is Sleeping Beauty, Peter Pan, all that. And you have the non-speaking roles, the Beast and
Donald Duck
and stuff like that. Mickey
Toy
Mouse.
Story.
Yeah, wear your clothes. But even those characters, now they supply you with the Disney underwears. And it's basically a jock strap, because when you brought your own underwear, you can see the lines through your underwears, and throughout the day it'd ride up through your butt, and you'd see this weird line. Imagine seeing Mickey or Buzz Lightyear with a G-string on, his draws. So now they started implementing these jock straps. Well, earlier when they did this, the laundry system wasn't good. So people started, contracting, public pubic lice. All those people out there.
Can we say that?
Yeah, you can. Well, it's true. Basically, the creepy crawlies down there that you can't really get rid of unless you light a fire down there. But who wants to do that?
Well, now let's talk about Splash Mountain, because that used to be called Splash.
Yeah, Splash Mountain. And to this day, if you go to Splash Mountain and you hang out by the fence and that drop where everybody screams, you will see guys who hang out there. And if you're there throughout the whole day, you'll be like, why is this guy still here? Mind you, Disneyland has their own police force. You never see LAPD inside. They're not allowed in there. They have their own, and you never see somebody dressed as a security guard. They don't allow that because it makes the park look ugly, so everybody is in casual or undercover. But you see these undercover people, and they're there throughout the whole day, and they're watching the drops on Splash Mountain, because it used to be called Flash Mountain. Because women used to flash themselves on the way down, and it took on that name. To this day, they still do it. But when they get caught, they get thrown out the park. And something weird about this, too, is, if you went to Disneyland and you've seen Jack Sparrow, okay, now he's very limited to where he could be at. He used to walk around the whole park, but now he can only stay by the Mark Twain area, and go back and forth. The reason why, because he used to walk around the whole park, and women used to flash themselves to him. So there's a lot of nudity going around Disneyland when you.
Well, they can't get mad when their old movies had the sexual innuendos anyway. So you could just pull that whole. Anything I learned from Disney.
Well, Disneyland, they're very methodical when it comes to their cast itself. If you're in costume and you
have to stay in character no matter what.
You're 24 hours in character. Even if you go home, you can't have, Sleeping Beauty on the front page news being cracked out. That would, Disneyland probably, we never hired her.
No, they're very strict. As a matter of fact, there was one employee that was caught because, like I said, they have their own police force. So, and they have a lot of people undercover surveying what these characters are doing, making sure that they're staying in character at all times, especially when they're in the park. So there was one situation where one employee was actually talking to another employee and talking about herself getting a divorce, and she was fired immediately right after that.
You're not supposed to bring anything at all. If you are a cast member, okay, you don't smoke cigarettes, you can't chew gum, you can't be on your cell phone, you can't mingle backstage with the people you're not supposed to mingle with. If in the Disney movies you guys are enemies, you can't be seen together unless it's part of the play. The reason why kids will see this and be like, wait a minute, they're not supposed to be friends, you can get fired for that. So they're basically watched to the T. You're talking about people who are basically have a choker when they're a Disney open face character. If you're covered in the mask, they're more lenient. But if you're like one of the princesses or Peter Pan, you got to watch out what you're doing, because a lot of people think it's a prestigious role to be a Disney character. It's not. A lot of people who work for Disney don't like it, but a job is a job. But with these jobs come these laws that are so like draconian. You can't do nothing at all. Well, let's get to Club 33. There's only one place in the whole Disneyland park where you could buy alcohol. A lot of people don't know this. This is in New Orleans Square, and it's called Club 33. It's right by the Pirates of the Caribbean, and the only thing it says is 33 on it. And this is the most prestigious club to get into. A lot of people say it's the Illuminati Club of clubs. It's basically a lounge. You can smoke cigars, okay? You can get drunk in there. That's why you see some of these people come out and they have beer. You're wondering where they got it from. It's from Club 33.
Well, Club 33 is a VIP lounge only for the dignitaries and the elite. This club has a 10-year waiting list, and you have to actually put for the initiation fee is of $10,000. And after that, when you are enrolled into this club, you have to pay $3,500 a year to be in the club. So not too many people.
Basically, it's prestigious, I guess, if somebody who's a Disney fanatic. Part of Club 33, I can buy liquor here. I can go outside and buy liquor, sneak it in.
Not to mention, Disneyland did not have an address, so they made the address, which is 1313, which is 33 as well, which is also Club 33, which is Walt Disney's Masonic number, 33.
Exactly. I mean, that's how they had to come up. So if we're going to tie the whole draconian Masonic thing, there is a lot of symbolism in there. And you just got a text about LAPD. How many times? See, you haven't been to Anaheim. When it comes to the police, there are a lot of police. They're really not there walking the park, you know, and to deny them access, they can because of jurisdiction. But when you look at the Disney laws, they are very, very strict when it comes to LAPD walking around the park. First of all, it makes the park look trashy. They're not all about security the way you would think that if you went to a football game, you'd see a lot of securities. So you feel secure. Not in Disneyland. You're supposed to feel secure because it is Disneyland. All right. That's why they don't put liquor stores in like Summerlin or stuff like that. It just tears down the whole Disney way. All right, there's a lot of hidden Mickeys. We know all that through Disneyland. These are the Mickey silhouettes with the ears, and you're supposed to find. They say there's like 100 something all throughout the park, and I found like a couple only because I wasn't looking for Disneyland stuff like that.
Well, if I'm gonna go to Disney World, I'm not gonna pay $150 to get in just to go on a scavenger hunt for.
Oh, exactly. One thing about Disneyland is good. If you study the old Disneyland back in the 70s and early 80s, you can still see remnants of old rides that they took down that's still there. And it's just an amazing place, you know, Disneyland. Like, I want to go there right now.
Did you know that all the fireworks at Disneyland are handmade by Amish children?
That's horrible. Seriously?
Are you now saying it's like they're running a sweatshop for
Well,
fireworks?
you know, they didn't allow women to be hired in the animation studios in the early Disney days. I mean, that changed obviously, but they didn't have any women in animation outside of like paint and ink.
Exactly. And you know, we were talking about the MK Ultra Mind Control. Do you hear this song? If you ever rode the ride, it's a small world. And 30 hours before you come out of there, you will never get this song out of your head. And if you listen to it, they replay this song, replay. And that's the whole thing. So you leave the park with this song to bring you back again. I've been in the park so many times. Hearing it now is just going to be devastating when I go home now because it's all I'm going to hear. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah.
It's already burning in your head right now, huh?
You know, I remember when I was a kid, that's the only thing I remember that I loved, which was It's a Small World. I went back and actually went on that ride again. Oh my God, I wanted to get off so bad. I couldn't even believe that that was like the most memorable thing to me as a child was It's a Small World. And as I grew older and went through that ride, I just wanted to jump out of the boat and make my way to the end of the line.
Grab one of those puppets and just break its neck. It's like, stop singing that song. All right, that's our Disney show for you today. Join us back here Wednesday when we come up with something exciting for you all to listen to. But for now, we'll leave you by listening to this song I think is so possessive to your mind, and to me, demonic. Alrighty, everybody out there.
There's probably subliminal messages in there too.
Exactly. We'll see you back here Wednesday. Everybody have a great Tuesday and take care. Bye-bye.